Good evening, everybody. This is Ralph Renick. I return tonight after an inspection trip to the Florida Keys. To describe the scene of devastation in words is difficult. Over the past 2 days, we have presented for you several special programs of news film on the result of the aftermath of the hurricane in the southeast Florida area. Tonight, new scenes, new pictures, new films, which we hope will depict to you the Keys catastrophe. This hurricane is now shaping up to be the worst natural disaster in Florida's history. Only the northwest panhandle of the state escaped damage. Let's take a look and see where that storm went. As you know, it moved in from the Florida Keys, striking between Marathon and Tavernier, then moved up and took a rather unusual turn instead of going out in the Gulf of Mexico over Everglades City and Naples, continuing up through the rich citrus area of the state, to the east of Tampa, then up through central Florida, and out into the ocean again near Jacksonville. And tonight, Donna is still on the rampage, menacing the coasts of North Carolina, expected to go inland once again. The Keys area was given the knockout blow, however. The question tonight is whether or not the Keys can survive and rebuild, whether this storm and its destruction will drive away residents and businessmen in the future. Some people in Marathon today told me the storm may be a blessing in disguise, but the hurricane to the Keys may be like the earthquake to San Francisco many years ago. Rebuilding in San Francisco, they say, brought in new capital, new enthusiasm. They hope the same thing will happen to the Keys area, despite the fact that San Francisco was in the earthquake zone, the Keys are in the hurricane belt. They think the same thing may apply. It was those Keys which bore the brunt of Donna. WTVJ newsman Dave Choate and Ira Eisenberg today flew a Sunline helicopter to that area. Many of the islands in the Keys are inaccessible, the bridges are down, and the road is out. And by helicopter, you can set down in many of those sections. The Keys are trying to rebuild right now, not only the bridges, but the water line to Key West, which is out, and expected to be out for 2 weeks. Emergency rationing has been declared for the Key West area. So let's take a look now at these films of Donna's sweep of the Keys. Only light damage in Key Largo, by and large, but you see from the air things getting progressively worse southward. The remains of once respectable homes are found strewn across the overseas highway, wherever you look. But not many have been able to see the damage, since the only way into many of the Keys, as we said, is by air. 6 bridges from Tavernier to Matacumbe Key are impassable. Isla Mirada and Matacumbe now sit isolated all by themselves, cut off on the south and north because of washed-away bridges like this one. But even those roads not cut off by downed bridges are difficult to travel because of the debris and felled trees. It's anybody's guess when the road will be open all the way from Florida City to Key West, but most estimates are not too optimistic, running anywhere from 2 or 3 days to a week. Crews from that Navy base in Key West are working furiously to patch up the bridges. By sunset tonight, nearly half the spans were near passable. The biggest washout near Matacumbe Key, where the tidal waves swept away the middle section. More important, though, to the welfare of the people in the Keys than the bridges is that water pipeline which runs from Miami to Key West. There you see the Navy crews repairing that pipeline. Much of it, 6,000 feet, 13 pipeline trestles washed away. The Navy figures it will be about 2 to 3 weeks before water service to Key West will be restored. While the Navy patches up the bridges and the pipeline, some teenagers who set out the storm on Isla Mirada sit patiently by, waiting for that connection with the mainland once more. And they all agreed this would be the last time they would stay on the Keys during a hurricane. Miraculously, almost all who stayed in the Keys survived. The extent of damage to personal property is tremendous. From Key Largo to Key West, hundreds of homes and businesses were ruthlessly laid to waste by the vicious winds and destructive high seas. From the helicopter, we could see long lines of cars attempting to get to inaccessible areas. There were homeowners and people with business property who had evacuated, were now trying to get back to see what, if anything, was left. On the ground, the picture was one of vast and nearly total devastation, grim testimony to the awful power of that storm. Automobiles overturned, blown up against houses and trees, telephone power lines down everywhere, cutting off communications and the energy necessary for everyday life. Houses near the waters, both on the Atlantic and Gulf sides, received the worst damage. Donna's 1-2 punch, violent wind and water, crumbled walls, tore roofs off foundations and blew out windows and doors. Those trailers down in the Keys area received the worst damage, picked up by the winds, 160, 170 miles an hour. They were tossed about like so many paper boxes and smashed. The residents of the Keys, conks as they're called, are a hardy bunch. Even in the face of this mighty devastation, today most of them hid their personal tragedies behind a quiet, determined dignity. Most of them do not have insurance because of the cost of such protection. It's prohibitive in many cases. And those who lost homes and businesses, and there were many, lost nearly everything they possessed. As you can see from these films, Donna was not discriminating in her choice of victims. Some were small homes of simple people, others large business places, plush resorts of the rich. Tonight, many of these people are homeless, financially ruined. But there's little evidence down there of defeat or despair. They're waiting to make the comeback with only the clothes on their backs, and in some cases not even that, with the clothes handed out by the Red Cross. But the people of the Keys have hope, determination. The number one topic tonight of conversation in the Keys is what must be done to rebuild. This is what remains. I was in Marathon today. That city, as you can see, is a shambles. It's typical devastation on the Keys. And here's a report of some other aspects of the damage around Marathon that I discovered with my camera. The only means of transportation to and from Marathon is by air. The long landing strip, although covered with the rushing tide during the storm, is open. Dozens of charter and other private aircraft took off and landed at the strip today. Most planes brought back people who had evacuated. They feared the worst. Most found just that. Navy helicopters assisting in rescue operations there. On the spot were representatives of the Small Business Administration, the Office of Civil and Defense Mobilization, Marathon homeowners and businessmen. Others in the Keys will be able to apply for 20-year, 3% loans to replace lost or damaged property. The Catholic Church at Marathon suffered extensive damage. At the height of that storm, when winds were roaring in from the Gulf, half the roof blew away. Some of the heavy timbers crashing on homes 2 blocks away. Statues in the church, however, unharmed. The bishop of the Diocese of Miami, Coleman Carroll, made an on-the-scene inspection today and made arrangements for Mass to be said in a temporary building down the highway while repairs are rushed on the church. The school, the rectory, and the convent will have to be rebuilt. Bishop Carroll estimated the loss at about $150,000. This is what remains of that school. And this is the wrecked home of Colonel Robert J. Philpott. He and his wife and 7-year-old son stayed in the house through the storm, huddled in a bedroom clothes closet. The roof and windows went sailing in the wind. They survived, as did many others, almost miraculous. This is the debris piled up alongside the overseas highway in the center of town. The heaviest damage I saw was just north of Marathon at Key Colony Beach. This cooperative apartment house was a total loss. On the wall of the gutted apartment remained an unsmiling mask. The one with the smile had crashed below. This building, along with hundreds of others, will have to be torn down, demolished. The big question is whether the owners will want to rebuild and face another hurricane sometime in the unknown future. One thing seems certain: the building code in Monroe